Welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolfe. That's the Hall of Famer Chris Carter. That is Nick Wright in the process of getting caffeinated. Good morning. Welcome to
Long night, but what a night.
Finally, we got the game that we wanted to see.
Yes.
Finally, we got a close game in this series.
That was the best, most important basketball game that's been played since one you and I were at together. Game 3 of the NBA Finals, the Kevin Durant game. You were not yet in our life yet, Miss Jenna Wolfe. We were in Cleveland, and that game ended with a Kevin Durant make.
Yep.
This game,
Kevin Durant, that was a dark period in our life with Nick and LeBron, but that's also that's the before Jenna Wolfe period.
Yeah, I was just going to say two takeaways. One, you always need more Jenna Wolfe in your life.
Of course.
And now you don't have to want anymore.
But man, what a basketball game.
Great game.
What a basketball
All right, let's start there, because starting with needing more me in your life is not good programming. Memo to those whose bosses have ever called them soft. Come in the next day, prove otherwise. After Game 3 of the Western Conference Finals, Rockets head coach Mike D'Antoni said his team was soft. Last night, Game 4 against the Warriors, they responded. James Harden leading the way for the Rockets with 30 points. Chris Paul chipping in 27. We finally got a close, hard-fought game right to the end. But the Rockets, they just fought a little bit harder. They win, evening up this series at 2 games apiece. Here is James Harden after the game.
We've been doing it all year long. That's the main reason we're in this position we're in today. That third game was just one loss. We all know what that is, and we had the mentality that we were going to win Game 4. We talked about it, we preached it, and we came out there and didn't stop. They made runs, of course they were going to, especially at home, and we just kept fighting.
They found a way, and again, it's just. They've done it all year, and they'll keep doing it. And, all we did, too, is just get back to even. It's not like, we're all excited. So we're even with them, but at least we're even with them. We didn't go down 3-1. So it was a must game, but we got a lot of work to be done.
It's the always popular must game. So they won their must game for them. No, he was right.
Yeah, he says after the game, though. Because he had a chance to say it was a must game before the game.
And he didn't.
Oh, after they won, he said it was a must game.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, how did they do this? How were the Rockets able to win Game 4, CC?
Well, tremendous mental effort by them. Because if you start off in Oracle the way they started, down 12-0, you're thinking, after losing by 41 points, man, this is how Chris Paul, this is how James Harden, this is how we're going to remember this season, the coach, talking about there was more pressure on the Warriors. The beginning of the game looked like all the pressure was on Houston, and they were not doing well with that pressure. But you can't talk about Houston without talking about their defense, because their defense got them back in the game. They had amazing individual effort. The team effort you could see was there, but that initial jolt that they received from Golden State and Golden State not being able to pull away from them, they immediately evaporated that lead in the second quarter, took a lead at halftime. And when you hold the 2 out of the last 3 years, the world champs, the most explosive offense, the best collection of offensive players we've ever seen together, you hold them to 12 points in the fourth quarter, in the biggest game that we say in almost a year.
3 made shots in the fourth quarter.
I mean, that effort right there by the Houston Rockets. Last year, 26 in defense. This year, up to 6 in defense. Had we seen that in this 3 games? No, we hadn't seen that. So defense is the way, and also the guts of some guys who had come up a little bit short in Chris Paul and Harden coming through in clutch situations.
It was singularly the best defensive performance, given the stakes, given the opponent, any team in the NBA has had all year long. It might be the best defensive performance in the NBA since Game 7 of the 2016 NBA Finals, when the Cavs held this Warriors team under 90, but that Warriors team didn't have Kevin Durant. You mentioned Chris Paul and James Harden. Man, this thing looked like it was going the other way. Then not only are the Warriors up 12-0, James Harden early in the game has as wide open of a shot as you will ever see an NBA player, let alone the guy that's going to win MVP, get. He thought about it, thought about it, and then threw a cross-court pass to P.J. Tucker for no reason. And you thought in the moment, I mean, read Twitter, listen to the analysts, oh, Harden's not built for this. Like, the moment has gotten too big for him. From that moment forward until the end of the first half, he carried the Rockets offensively and with some great defense at the very end of the first half. And then in the second half, Chris Paul took over. Your two stars delivered in the biggest moment of their respective careers. Jenna, the Rockets had to win this game twice, because they lost it twice. They lost the game. When you go down 12-0 to the Warriors in Oracle, 99% of the time, that game's over.
Yes.
When you let the Warriors beat you by 15+ in the third quarter, 100% of the time, that game's over. Since Steve Kerr's been there, 51 times they've beaten an opponent by at least 15 points in the third quarter. They were 51-0. The Rockets had to come back twice. They did it. And then they had to pitch a shutout defensively in the fourth quarter. It was a remarkable performance.
Absolutely right. The narrative around this team has always been fantastic in the regular season, but between Mike D'Antoni and Chris Paul and James Harden, come the postseason when the stakes are higher and the stage is a little bit bigger, they don't seem to be able to close it out. But to be able to do it against an offensive juggernaut like the Warriors at Oracle,
yes,
and able to play such incredible defense at the same time, what does it say about how Mike D'Antoni got this team prepared and ready after a 41-point blowout the game before?
It's really something to build on. You know, they needed one win in Oakland. They were able to get that win. Now, this is the kind of things that championships are built on. That being down 12-0. If they're able to get through this series, that will be in a video. Harden getting those 2 steals, getting in the back pocket of the Golden State Warrior, Kevin Durant stealing that, and then stripping Kevin Durant, which I believe him stripping him in the second quarter led to Kevin Durant later on in the game passing to Klay Thompson when Klay wasn't ready, when I thought Durant should have taken the shot there at the end of the game. So those are the types of things that you build a championship on. And now you have it where Houston has wanted this. Nick talked about it just a little bit, didn't want to give it away, and talking to the owner, talking to the general manager, Nick's has a relationship with them. They won a 3-game series.
The owner said it. The owner gave it away himself, so now I'm comfortable saying it. The owner was caught by local media leaving the stadium last night. This has been Houston knows Golden State is the most talented team ever put together. They also know basketball, the NBA, is the hardest sport to execute an upset. The longest series, the most scoring opportunities, therefore the lowest variance. What their goal was the moment they acquired Chris Paul, let's turn the NBA season into a best-of-3 with 2 of those games in our building. Tillman Fertitta said it last night. It's what I had been hearing behind the scenes from the team all year long. Let's make it a best-of-3. Let's make sure we have home court. They secured home court in the regular season. The best-of-3 was looking sketchy when they lose game 1 at home. Now they've done it. Now you see if you can go execute.
Even sketchier after getting drilled in game 3.
Getting drilled in game 3, absolutely.
So did these two secure their reputation? Can we finally put that behind them now, or do you have to wait and see how they come out in this series?
No. You moved it from what they call the back burner to the front burner.
But it's still on the burner.
Because now, if they don't come through, it's just bigger.
Okay.
It's just bigger. If you don't come through in games 5, game 6, or a game 7, yes, the stakes are even higher now. But also, the potential of being able to repair their reputation is at an all-time high also. So they can gain more, but also their reputation is still there in the balance. They're still going against one of the greatest teams that we've ever seen.
And some of this will be what happens in the future will dictate how we look at this Rockets team. And here's what I mean. Let's say the Rockets lose the next 2 games. That will mean they lost game 5 at home, lose game 6 on the road. It will feel very disappointing. If a couple years from now, the only team to take the Warriors even 6 is this Rockets team, then we look at it a little bit differently. Also, I think some of the reputation is repaired. It is not championship reparation, if you will, but what James Harden did in the first half, what Chris Paul did after the first quarter, I don't think you can call these guys chokers anymore. I don't think you can say these guys. And D'Antoni, who you bang on, D'Antoni, I think, kept them even keeled throughout the game. If you heard the timeout during the game, CeCe.
I don't have a lot of faith in D'Antoni.
Well, you cannot have a lot of faith in him, and he still might be the right mindset of a coach for these guys. In the third quarter, when the Warriors were going on that insane run, at the end of it, he calls timeout and he says, listen, they made their shots. They went on their run. No problem. Like, that might not be the most inspirational coaching for some guys, but for these guys, they seem to respond to it. They seem to respond to whatever he was telling them before the game. Like, all these guys, if they beat this Warriors team, all of that stuff's gone. And if they take it 7, I think most of it's gone.
Yeah, there's a lot of basketball, all right? Just like Twitter exploded in the first quarter when Harden didn't take that shot, we were right back into it in game number 5. So their reputation, to me, has the chance to be repaired, but it's not repaired yet. Now, the stage is set. The owner talked about they're going to have a special celebration, game number 5, for the people of the senseless killing in Santa Fe. They're going to honor them at the game. So it's going to be an atmosphere that, if you're trying to win a championship, that's the game that they must get there, game number 5 back in Houston.
All right, Rockets now have home court advantage as this series shifts back to Houston for Game 5. Coming up, who's facing more pressure tonight in the East, the Cavs or the Celtics? Next on First Things First.
At Buffalo Wild Wings, we'll admit that we often go overboard with our limited time offerings. We just can't help ourselves. Take our new signature sampler. For $15, you get wings and 3 shareable options, like fried pickles or cheese curds. Then there's our aptly named over-the-top nachos, a literal mountain of crispy tortilla chips loaded with your choice of pulled pork or honey barbecue chicken, corn, jalapenos, and more. Then top it all off with our new platinum margarita. Go overboard with us today at Buffalo Wild Wings. Wings, beer, sports. Available for a limited time while supplies last. Please drink responsibly.
Get out of here.
The Eastern Conference Finals resume tonight. Boston hosting the Cavs for Game 5. Boston loves playing host. They invite you in, they serve appetizers, make you feel comfortable, and then they beat you. 9-0 at home this postseason, but losers of the last 2 in Cleveland. Celtics have home court advantage. Cavs have LeBron James advantage. So who's got the overall advantage? CeCe, what do the Cavs need to do to win tonight?
Man, they need to take a page out of the old Cavs, 16, all the years before. They need to play some defense. You got to be able to shut people down. Late in the season, that's the thing you can depend on. The stakes are high. There's a lot of pressure. Your shots come and go, as we saw last night with Houston. What did it come down to in the end? You got to be able to stop people. You know that initially that the Celtics are going to come out with a big punch. The Cavs have to try to have some type of advantage in that first quarter. If they're able to negate the energy from the crowd that these younger players play with, I believe that can lead to the Cavs to victory. But it amounts to defense and the type of energy that we saw. I mean, when you have Kyle Korver setting the example for you defensively, him and LeBron James a combined 30 seasons in the NBA, they had the 2 biggest efforts we saw from an effort standpoint of the Cavaliers came from these 2 players. So follow their example. And it starts on the defensive end, and you got to get it started early there in Boston because the crowd will be amazing tonight.
I'm smiling because I hadn't thought about it that way. Korver and LeBron combined 70 years on Earth.
Yeah.
30 years in the NBA.
You've had a tremendous influence on me being the smartest guy on TV and make me think outside of what I would normally think about.
I appreciate that, CeCe.
Yeah, I was joking.
Okay, so listen, I think the first quarter is critical to Boston because I think the Cavs, I don't think Boston can win this series if they lose this game. I think the Cavs can. I also don't think Boston is equipped to do in Game 5 what they did in Game 2, which is be dominated in the first half and then flip the script entirely in the second half. You don't think
for those role players coming out and seeing Jaylen Brown, seeing Tatum get off the fast starts that they weren't able to do, they know the road record. Like seeing those young players, if Al Horford starts really fast, you don't think that affect the psyche of Cleveland?
No. That's what I'm saying is that's why I'm saying I think the first quarter is critical for Boston. I think Boston has to get out to a fast start.
Right. I think it's critical for Cleveland also. That's what I was trying to counter.
Here's the thing. we have seen Cleveland, whether it was game 1 against Toronto, whether it was I forget which Pacers game, I think it was game 5 against Indiana, where they don't start off well, and then once the second unit comes in for the other team and LeBron stays in extended minutes, they can get back within reaching distance, start to figure it out. I think Cleveland, I think there are multiple paths to victory for the Cavs at this point. I think the Cavs right now are feeling better about how they're playing, and they obviously have the best player in the series. I think the Celtics' path to victory is slimmer but much more clear. They have to be extraordinary defensively, and they need to get Al Horford off. Like, period, point blank. They can't have Al Horford be a secondary or tertiary player in this game. He's got to be their best guy. It's got to be Horford, Tatum, Brown, with whatever you get from Rozier being a bonus. That's what the Celtics have to do to win what I feel is the second must-win game they've played in these playoffs, second only, of course, to the Game 7 against Milwaukee.
Can Brad Stevens just go back to Game 1, maybe more so Game 1 than Game 2, and said, just do what we did here. When the pressure wasn't on, when you didn't let LeBron get in your head, when this was just you're going out and playing basketball, coming off the series that you just won, when we hadn't gone to Cleveland and lost 2 games, when Al Horford came out and absolutely dominated. I mean, how hard is it for them to do that?
LeBron, that was the worst playoff game LeBron's played in over a year.
Yeah, and the problem with game number 1 also is you've played 3 other games. You got 3 other games of intel. So there's only so much you can adjust to and change. Look, in game number 1, the Cavs only scored 83 points. Can they do that again? No, they can't do it again. They're an outstanding defensive team. And the reason why they were so hard to defend for the Cavs was they did a lot of passing, motion, picking until they got the matchup that they wanted. Since then, the Cavs have made adjustments to that. We haven't seen Brad make any counter punch. So the point that Nick and I are trying to make is there's too much information that's been exposed. We've seen the Cavs adjust. That's not a move that they can go back to.
Sure.
I'm also curious if Aaron Baines is going to start. That was an adjustment I thought Brad Stevens might make in Game 4. He didn't. I think he paid for it. Is Aaron Baines going to start? That then forces most likely Tristan Thompson to be guarding Aaron Baines, which gets Kevin Love on Al Horford. Now, you're going to pay the penalty for that on the other end of the court, but it could help get Al Horford off offensively. That's an adjustment I think that is waiting for Brad Stevens. That's the only starting lineup adjustment that I think is out there for him because Rozier's your only healthy point guard, so unless you're going to start Marcus Smart at point guard, which you're not, like you don't have a lot of other potential lineup adjustments.
Yeah, from a defensive standpoint, I would like to see Brad Stevens go back to Marcus Morris being on LeBron early in the game. Get Jaylen Brown, get him off of LeBron so he avoids foul trouble. LeBron is too physical and too smart for those younger players. Later in the game, later in the quarter, you can rotate those guys on LeBron, but that would be one adjustment, Jenna, I would like to see the Celtics make that they did do in game number 1 and were successful the way you mentioned.
And I'm going to add one other thing that I don't know if you'll be into at all, but you've talked a lot about how LeBron, it's all about championships. Your evaluation of him is going to be championships. His evaluation of himself is going to be championships. LeBron, while he's not on social media, he saw the game last night. And I believe, and I think LeBron believes, and I know the people around LeBron believe, if they face the Warriors in the NBA Finals, they're drawing nearly dead. I think they believe they have a path to victory, even if it's a slim one, over Houston. And if Golden State were up 3-1 and about to go make the NBA Finals.
Wow, so you're saying, okay, LeBron is 0 dark 30, but the guy that we consider, and people have told us, he's a basketball savant. He's a fan of the game. He sees the overall picture.
He knows, hold on, we might not be playing. If we make the NBA Finals, it might not be the Warriors. And so LeBron's going to be trying hard no matter what. But it's a different level to me of motivation. If you think I am working my tail off.
I can buy into that.
To just go get my head handed to me by Golden State. As opposed to what, I tell you what LeBron doesn't want to have happen, is get knocked out by Boston and then see Houston in the NBA Finals and be thinking, did I leave a championship on the board? Is the year that I didn't make the NBA Finals a year we could have beaten the team in the NBA Finals? Now, I'm not saying I picked the Cavs over the Rockets, but I know the folks in Cleveland and the folks around LeBron have more faith in their ability to beat Houston, which they think they got a shot at.
They match up better with.
As opposed to Golden State. So I think last night's game actually helped the Cavs tonight.
All right, Game 5 tonight, back in Boston. Coming up, what went wrong for the Warriors in Game 4? It's next on First Things First.
Woke up like that.
Stories to start your morning now brought to you by the unexpected energy of ExxonMobil. Patriots in the midst of OTAs without their 2 biggest stars. Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski. When asked about their absence, Belichick, in an effort to stay true to his effervescent self, said, "I'm not going to talk about guys who aren't here." CC, could we read into Belichick's comments at all?
No, that's a standard NFL rule. Coaches don't talk about the players who aren't there. It prevents from a lot of questions about a person's not there, negotiation. It really takes some of the edge away from the ownership there or the management there. No, that's a standard policy. He shouldn't talk about it. He should talk about the players that are there and moving forward. If those players show up, he'll add them to the comments. I'm cool with Bill.
And as we mentioned yesterday, unfortunately, it happens every year. You're going to lose a big-time player, at least one team, on the first day of OTAs. For the Chargers yesterday was Hunter Henry. It's one of the reasons Gronk's not there. Gronk's waiting on this new contract or an adjustment to his contract. Once that happens, he will be there. So I don't think this will be, at least on Gronk's side, an issue for many more days.
You guys hear about this little nugget? The Browns reportedly offered the 35th pick in the draft for Super Bowl MVP Nick Foles. The Eagles then brought this to Foles, who said he would rather remain in Philly. Nick, is Foles better off sticking as Carson Wentz's backup?
I don't even know why you're asking me this, because I don't even know why I get to talk about this. I hate this. All right, let me do it. Chris Carter, on something that I don't think I've ever thought you were more wrong about something. And you were never more right about Nick Foles, what he wants to be. He's better in Philly. Not everyone wants to be a starter. Someone wants to be a backup. So go ahead. You take the time.
I mean, your opinion, a lot of people think that way. People like to think if they were a star what they would do. But it's not your fault. You've never been a star. I understand why you would think that. Man, I'm going to be the starter. Man, I'm better than that. Get me some respect. Yeah, I can understand that. You've never been a star. When you've been a star before, you realize that, sometimes being a role player, you've been a role player your whole life, but you're thinking you're a star. So I understand
the reason why you would box right, and you just crushed me on it.
Yeah, but that was the reason why I was right.
Okay, fair. Oh, because of the star pedigree.
Yes.
Unbelievable.
You mentioned this earlier. Unfortunate news out of L.A. Chargers tight end Hunter Henry tore his ACL in OTAs on Tuesday. The 23-year-old had 12 touchdown catches in his first 2 seasons. Good enough for the team to part ways with future Hall of Famer Antonio Gates. It's been an ongoing narrative here as far as showing up for OTA. CC, how big a loss is this for the Chargers?
It's a huge loss for them. You're talking about one of the promising tight ends, the way they fit into the offense with their quarterback, Phillip Rivers. His connection with the tight end, you mentioned Antonio Gates. He loves the tight end. It's a huge part of the offense there. It's a big blow to him, but it also is a reminder. Football. In practice, you can get hurt a lot more than any other sport. That's why it's important to have the contract and all those things worked out for the players that are holding out.
Listen, I feel for Hunter Henry. Let me ask you this, though. Do you think they could bring Antonio back? They moved on from Antonio, not because they didn't like him, but because Hunter Henry was going to become the focal point of that position group. Now,
of course,
Antonio
that's one of the options. His name's on the board. They were trying to get a little more speed at the position because they don't have that with him. But, of course, his name's on the board. Wouldn't be surprised if they got him signed.
Absolutely. I think they probably will.
All right, moving on to the Jaguars. Leonard Fournette reported to the Jags OTAs having lost a little weight. Lost about 12 pounds, hoping that can improve on last year, where he rushed for 1,000 yards. CC, how will his slimmer, svelter figure help the running back in year 2?
This is what a lot of younger players, they start to figure out. What's my playing weight in the NFL? Because they don't know. At LSU, he was 240. Also at LSU, he stayed hurt because you get hit a lot. Football is not a contact sport. It's avoid the contact. That's how you stay healthy. People think he had a great year. I didn't think he had a great year. Average under 4 yards a carry. And when he was out of the lineup those couple games, they rushed the ball more effectively with him being on the bench. So I like the weight loss.
Listen, I think your point's the key one. People think he was better last year than he was. People talk about the great young running backs in the league. They say Ezekiel Elliott, Todd Gurley, Leonard Fournette. Fournette has not yet in the NFL earned the right to be included in that class. So I think the weight loss should help. Anything that will make him a bit, I know he's not going to be an overwhelming speed guy, but a little quicker to the hole should help him out.
Elusive.
Because he's not going to lose much power from this. It's not like he lost 12 pounds of muscle. He's still going to be a monster as far as his muscle goes.
All right, finally in Carolina, Norv Turner thinks that he can get more out of former MVP Cam Newton. Turner said, quote, "I see Cam as a guy that can be in the mid to high 60s in the completion percentage." All right, Chris Carter, is this a realistic goal for Cam Newton?
I like Norv Turner. I got a lot of belief in him coaching quarterbacks and in his passing system. the system that he has. He's had some great quarterbacks. He's gotten some great results with guys who don't have nearly the talent of Cam Newton. So if Cam buys into the philosophy, and it's hard to do when you've been successful in the league, you've been doing it a certain way. Him under Mike Shula, he had a certain measure of success, peaked out where he was the MVP of the league, but he hadn't been able to duplicate that success, and he's not gotten better in passing the football from a percentage standpoint. I believe North Turner can take him, and what they have to do from a scheme standpoint, they have to give him some easier throws, also throwing the ball sideways. That's one way to be able to get your percentage way up and throwing the ball to the running backs. They can add these two things because Cam is good at throwing the ball down the field. They're great at play action pass. Adding those things, I think it will help Cam's confidence. So it's important how well they do early. As a veteran player, if he gets success early, he's more apt to buy into it. Okay. If he struggles early, he'll revert back to his old style, which he had some success at.
Listen, part of Cam's low career completion percentage is on him, his lack of development in the fundamentals, his lack of development as a passer, and part of it is on the system he's been running. They've been running a deep shot offense where your yards per attempt are going to be typically in the top 10 of the league, but your completion percentage is not because you're taking so many deep shots. Now, Cam also, on the easy throws, has been erratic. Cam is at times a better deep passer than he is short throw passer. He wouldn't be, the Cam Newton we've seen in the past years, wouldn't be hyper successful in a Patriot-style offense where it's a bunch of quick, easy throws. He has to get better at that, but the coaching staff also can put him in a better position to succeed. This is a guy that when we were talking about last year, you said that if Cam Newton, that if he doesn't end up as a Hall of Famer, he will not view himself as a success because of the level of talent that he has. He's now old enough and long enough into the league where any deficiency in his game, and accuracy is the biggest deficiency, needs to be what he spends all of his time and energy on. I think now he has a coaching staff in place that will help him with that.
I believe that the coaching staff did the best for Cam for him to be successful. A lot of Cam is his football IQ, and does he have the anticipation? So Cam has been playing long enough that it's time to stop making excuses, either for Cam or the organization. North Turner's one of the best in the business. If Cam doesn't grow, it's Cam's fault, all right? He knows enough football, but can he get better at releasing it, timing it, seeing the windows, and trusting those things? That's a Cam Newton issue, I believe, more so than a coaching issue and what they did for him in the past issue.
All right, a lot to see with that one. Let's get back to basketball now. Rockets and Warriors finally gave us the matchup we've been waiting for. You know, the one where one team isn't blowing out another team. Tough, close, Game 4, the Western Conference Finals. Rockets edging Golden State, handing them their first playoff loss at home since 2016. That despite a monster third quarter from Steph, dropping 17 in the period. We are tied at 2 games apiece in that series as it now heads back to Houston. Here is Steph Curry after the game.
We played really well in that first, 6-7 minutes and made it tough on them, but they're a great team. So whether you extend the lead or not, it's a 48-minute game, and we had plenty of chances to come down the stretch and win the game. So not a ideal situation after the way we started, but like the fight that we showed.
I felt like in the fourth quarter, we just ran out of gas. We scored 12 points. Tried to buy a little bit of rest for our guys, but they just outplayed us in the fourth, and they earned it.
That'll happen. Fatigue will make you tired.
Yeah, the running out of gas is exactly what happened, Jenna.
Yeah, that's what they did. Draymond Green, didn't he played like the entire fourth quarter?
Listen, Draymond Green, season high in minutes by 5 full minutes. KD, season high in minutes. Steph, most minutes he played in a non-overtime game. Clay, second most minutes he played in a non-overtime game. These guys haven't had to go 40-plus minutes. They did period point blank because of the way Steve Kerr rests those guys. I mean, we saw Kerr in NBA Finals games rest guys to begin fourth quarters. He is judicious with his minutes, but no Andre Iguodala, the importance of the game. Now all of a sudden these guys, they expend so much energy with that amazing third quarter push. And then when the Rockets punched back all of a sudden the
Did
Rockets,
nothing.
D'Antoni's been criticized this year for playing his guys too many minutes, playing his starters long into blowouts. Well, the Rockets are used to playing 40-plus minutes. The Warriors are not. That showed up that was the worst quarter. Fewest baskets made in a quarter, fewest points in a quarter the Warriors have had under Steve Kerr in the playoffs ever. Like, it showed up. Their legs were gone.
And Klay was banged up. He strained his knee earlier, and you could see that they couldn't rest him. So you talk about, wow, Iggy's out. Well, the fact is, man, you can't go too much deeper, and when you do go deeper, you're not going to get a wing player. So Klay had to rough it out. So he was playing, limping around, and Klay, to me, the last possession, when Durant had the ball, Klay didn't look like he wanted that shot and didn't have a whole bunch of shots, only 10 points in the game. You could see the effect, but they've got an embarrassment of riches. When you sign Kevin Durant, you commit to, I'm not going to have a deep bench. So in getting Kevin Durant and having another superstar, if you get into a battle like they got into last night, you don't have the subs. You don't have a deep bench. And the thing, Nick, you mentioned a couple other times, the way they have that roster. They have too many centers on their roster, and it hadn't come back to hurt them because they didn't need the roster spot. But with Iggy being out, you got Nick, go through it. I mean,
their only wing players on the bench were Nick Young, who was awful, Sean Livingston, who they were outscored by 15 points when he was on the court, and Quinn Cook, who played for 2 minutes, and then they realized, listen, he's a good story. He's not yet a good player. He's a good story as far as going to being a G League player, being a two-way contract, then getting a guaranteed deal. He's not ready for this moment. Who was dressed and healthy that didn't play for them? Damian Jones, center. JaVale McGee, center. Zaza Pachulia, center. David West, power forward. So, like, they had guys on the bench they could have played, but they're all big men. But I am going to – go ahead.
No, and one thing that they're good at is you see when Golden State gets on a roll, pay into their bench. Watch their bench. Their antics and everything, man, they're up and down the sideline. That's what they do best, Jenna. They don't want the coach to say, hey, get in the game. And that's what they have to do now, and they ran into that problem in game number 4 last night.
And here's the other thing, though. When your offense is stagnant, when you are trying to stave off a comeback, when all of a sudden Steph and Klay have gone cold. Steph, 1 of 8 in the fourth quarter. Klay didn't make a shot after 3:30 left in the third. Guess what? Kevin Durant, please stand up. I was told Kevin Durant is unguardable. I was told that when Kevin Durant, the ultimate luxury, because you don't have to run a play, you can throw it to him in the high post, and no matter who's guarding him. Most dangerous scorer maybe ever since I heard all this stuff. Kevin Durant can't make 1 basket on 5 shots in the fourth quarter in their most important game of the year. Can't do it. Like, so the good and the bad with Steph is, the good is we've never seen anything like him when he's on. The bad is sometimes, like, he's not as reliable on a minute-by-minute basis as KD has been and is supposed to be. This was a time where KD is supposed to stop that Rockets run. Give me the ball, I will score. He made 1 bucket in the fourth quarter. That ain't great.
And that last possession, he didn't want that shot. He didn't look like it. And I believe Harden stripping him in the second quarter had an effect on him bringing the ball up at the end of the game.
This Warriors team, they have this ability to come out, make it look easy, and then hang back for a bit and be like, we can coast our way through because muscle memory is going to take us to the end. Because we'll make the last shot. Because if I don't, KD will, or Klay, someone will make the last shot. They rest too much on their laurels. And I wonder what happened last night. Was it more of that coming out to a 12-0 run? Was it more the fatigue, or was it more that they were missing Iggy and Klay?
Well, listen, your first point is a great one, because you see that game to game, and you sometimes see it quarter to quarter, where the Warriors, if they are locked in, if they are not turning the ball over, if they're locked in defensively, no one's beating them. But once they get casual, once they get sloppy, either because they blew you out the night before or they blew you out the quarter before,
to stop them.
And what they're not used to is a team punching back after that third quarter.
This is the most talented team that they faced in this run, okay? They were locked in last night. Houston took it from them. You score 12 points after having those types of players, all right? Give the other team some credit. Houston took it from them. Let's not make excuses for Golden State. That was a Houston win, not Golden State lost it. That was a great ball game.
All right, coming up, why does Big Ben keep talking about his backup? Why does he keep talking, period? That's next, First Things First. Welcome back to First Things First. Super Bowl champ Mark Schlereth is back with us today. Hey, Mark.
How many times Super Bowl champ?
Just 3. But,
3 of them?
I mean, just 3.
My bad. I should have
Don't be
mentioned
coming
that.
in messing up my show, man, trying to teach people football and stuff.
Yeah, during the
Okay.
break, Stink was giving me a great tutorial about being a C thrower or a U thrower. And Chris literally said, "Stop teaching him stuff, man."
Yeah, that's
He said, "Tell him,
a
don't
Joel
teach him."
Claddism right there, man. Joel Cladd helped me with some stuff. Yeah, Joel is awesome.
Good to see you, Stink.
Good stuff. Good to have you here. All right, some interesting news surfacing about Hall of Famer Brett Favre. In a conversation with Peter King, the Hall of Fame quarterback said he made 3 trips to rehab during his playing career for alcohol abuse and to fight independence on painkillers. Favre recalls mornings where he'd take as many as 14 Vicodin at a time. He said, quote, 1995 was an MVP year for me, but that year when I woke up in the mornings, my first thought was, I got to get more pills. CeCe, let me start with you. What was your reaction to all of this?
I'm glad they had the conversation. Peter King, he's writing his last article for Sports Illustrated, one of the great writers that we've had around the league. I would say a friend of mine, was a colleague of mine on a couple other shows and stuff that I've worked on. So Peter King's like one of those people in the business that if he has the story, if he has the intel, you can pretty much write it home that he has all the facts and all the sources. This is something that I was close to because of a relationship that I had, Jenna, you know, from us going back to Philly days. There was a guy named Reggie White, and he was my best friend. And when he went to Green Bay in 1993, and me being in Minnesota, we played him twice a year. So Reggie, one of Reggie's things that he had, and one of the things he's most disappointed before he lost his life was that the situation in Philadelphia, that Buddy Ryan didn't trust in him and some of the other veterans, Seth Joyner, to tell them the news about me because Reggie and I were friends. When Buddy Ryan cut me, Reggie White didn't have any clue of what I was going through. And he was so upset with Buddy that Buddy didn't come to him as being the leader that he was and trust him that he might be able to do something because Buddy Ryan didn't believe that addicts or alcoholics or those involved in some type of chemical dependency that they could actually get better. Now, once Reggie went to Green Bay, he encountered Brett Favre. And Reggie and I were best friends then. So Reggie, and the only reason why I'm saying something now is because Brett told the story. I've known this for years. And Reggie used to confide in me what Brett was going through, how I went through treatment, how it helped me, some of the things that he would be able to do to be able to help Brett out. So I know the stories. The stories are true and accurate. I'm glad that Brett would have the courage to be able to tell people because in this day and age, Brett Favre or Chris Carter, we couldn't be stars in the NFL. Our careers would be ruined if people had known the path that we had gone down to get to where we are. Neither one of us would have a gold jacket. I'm glad Brett can share the story because I believe it will help a lot of people. It will bring light on a violent sport that a lot of time leads to addiction. As a country, we're facing an epidemic as far as the opiates. And yes, in professional sports, we have gone through that. Stink has how many surgeries?
29.
29, and typically after that surgery, what comes after that is some type of prescription for some type of painkiller. So I'm glad he told the story. This is real. Brett Favre is, man, one of the great quarterbacks we've ever seen, and he overcame even greater obstacles for that fame.
How much more impressive does it make the scope of his career, what he was able to accomplish, knowing what he was battling?
Oh, I mean, Brett Favre, regardless whether he was battling that or not, his career he was an absolute freak show on a football field. He was just that good. He was must-see television. And there was a couple of year stretch there where just watching him on film, sometimes you'd be watching and you get mesmerized and you're like, you're just watching Brett Favre and you're supposed to be watching the defense because that's what you're preparing for as an offensive player. And you get to the point where, like, I just watched 2 quarters. I didn't even watch the defense. I'm so mesmerized by Brett Favre. Here's the issue, though, for me, with the opiate addiction. Now, it used to get passed out like candy, opiates.
Yes.
Like,
in the testimonial, Favre says there was a point in time he took 14 in a day. 14 Vicodin.
14
Vicodin.
Right, in the morning.
In the morning.
Right.
So go ahead.
So, yeah, I mean, there was a time in the NFL. Now, they've cleaned that up a lot. But here is the bigger issue, okay? We need to look at our players if safety truly is your number one concern. And we need to start investigating, you know, not only the number of opiates guys take, but the CBD oils and the other things that are alternatives to the pain that guys suffer on a day-to-day basis. Here's the other issue, and it drives me crazy because whether it's the media, which is part of us, and I know it's not us, but there's the mainstream media, and there is America, there's an assault on football. There's an attack on it. And I know that football has given me so much more than it's ever taken from me. So much more. And we have this equation, football, brain damage, CTE, football, CTE. And we don't look at, well, football, alcohol abuse, drug addiction, depression when you're done playing, when the game is taken away from you, and all the effects that has on brain chemistry. We just look at it and like, well, he played football, that guy has brain damage. And I know plenty of men who played for a long time that have their faculties together that were concussed many times. And so I don't think that equation is correct, but we don't study it. We just look at it and go, oh, football. No, there's so many other factors that we're not even looking at, and that's the thing that bothers me, and that's why I'm happy that Brett Favre came out with this, because there's other issues going on here under the surface, our dirty little secret, and those dirty little secrets need to be exposed so we can make some changes.
I agree that some of the media representation of football as why would you ever let someone play football? Like it's almost it's represented in some circles as if it's a negligent act as a parent to let your kid engage in football. And you've talked a lot and passionately about how much the game gave you, and forget the wealth, forget the fame, but as leadership, as learning to be a father, things like that. Where football as an institution can do better is something you alluded to, though, which is as the country is going through an opiate crisis, there is, as a pain alternative for a lot of people, different forms of either medicinal marijuana or what you're talking about, the CBD oils, things that do not wreck your liver the way opioids can, things that do not cause serious physical addiction, and things that do not have the types of effects where our friend Ryan Leaf, when he's out of football, he's better now, but I mean, is robbing somebody's house to try to get pain pills. Like, that's where the league needs to, in my opinion, be a little more progressive, because we know that you guys were in the pain business. Like, you guys, I have no idea how you feel every morning. You and I have never talked about what you...
I have levels of crappiness. Hey, today I don't feel as crappy as I did yesterday, so it's a good day, right?
On the crapometer,
you're exactly,
like 2
but
to 6.
Can I ask you a question real quick, C? Because one thing Brett talks about in this is he realized his issue, that alcoholism was really the root of the issue, and that then the opiate addiction was more of a symptom of that disease. I've never heard you say talk about yourself as a drug addict. You've talked about yourself as an alcoholic, and that alcohol is what you couldn't handle. And I think that, and I'm not trying to put you out there like that. I think for the audience, it's important for people.
When you've been through treatment, they typically they give you a prescription of what they think is your gateway drug. What you're really addicted to and what it will lead to. Now, for me, it was the alcohol that led to cocaine. So for me, I am a recovering drug addict who's an alcoholic. So for me, I haven't had a drink in 27 and a half years. And the reason why is because I knew through treatment that they pinpointed that. And that's what Brett is saying in that. These things, typically, one thing opens it up for all the other substances or the other behavior to take control in your life.
There's also a little bit of a blurred line between drinking as a young guy in the NFL, what you've been doing since high school, and then starting to feel the effects of pain and starting to mask that, self-medicate with some of the painkillers. Because Brett had been drinking for a long time, just casually, and then maybe there was some point where it wasn't casual anymore, and you failed to see that as a problem until you add painkillers to that.
I think part of the other issue is he said in his article it was a disease of excess. Yes. So a lot of people can go through a week, 2 weeks, whatever, but when they have one drink, it becomes 6 drinks or it becomes 8 drinks. It can't just be, hey, I'm going out and having a casual drink with dinner. I'm having 7 beers, or 8, whatever it is. And so I think those are the things you have to just be really honest with yourself. And obviously it took him 3 trips to rehab before he's finally actually honest with himself about that. Yeah. What did he say? The second trip to rehab, the first one for alcohol addiction, the nurse said, hey, we'll see you back here.
Oh,
You do.
there's no doubt. And the NFL has taken tremendous steps as far as policing the facilities, what you have access to, the number, quantity, which you can get. You used to be able to get on an NFL airplane and get an opiate, a package of them, and 2 beers.
Sure. You write down. Give me 2 beers. Give me 2 Vicodin, 2 beers. And we're good.
Yes.
And they just run them down. Now everything is literally everything is monitored. They're always auditing the drugs that you have in your facility.
And they don't provide alcohol on the flights.
Right.
And everything
So
anymore.
it's definitely has taken the proper turn. But I'm, like you said, going back to the CBD oils and stuff, they need to continue to move that forward. And we need to study the effects of, like I said, depression. Any man that loses, if your identity, my identity, your identity have never been as football players,
yes.
right? So when you put your identity in what you do for a living and that gets taken away, I don't care who you are, we'll all face our work mortality. That hurts you. And I think that depression is a big part of the CT. I think all those things are factors. And the thing that drives me crazy is we don't study any of that. We just say, boy, you play football and you're going to develop CTE and you're done.
Right.
And that's what really hurts me as a former player and as a person who loves this game.
Right. Really good insight from both of you who played. Mark, stick around.
Yeah.
More First Things First right after this. Back here, First Things First with Mark Schlereth. The Steelers kicked off OTAs yesterday. That could mean only one thing, Stink. Le'Veon Bell is holding out. And Big Ben is talking about his relationship with a quarterback the team drafted instead of a weapon the Steelers could probably use this year. Okay, 2 things, Stink. Sorry about that. Much of the drama in Pittsburgh has been about whether Big Ben will mentor the Steelers' 3rd-round draft pick in Mason Rudolph. Yesterday, Big Ben cleared the air.
I think people took some things that I said into a context that I was going to be mean or rude or whatever, and that was not it at all. If you listen to the whole conversation, that was said in jest and laughing and having fun. So I've never been the type to just be rude or mean to other quarterbacks. So you can ask, Jones, and I've had a lot of quarterbacks through here that have been younger than me that I've tried to help any way that I can. So, I'll continue to do that.
Part of me wants to just click the emoji eye roll, which I'm not an emoji person, but if I did right now, there would be a little emoji
eye roll.
Yeah, it's like,
Okay.
it goes
How was
all,
that again? Let me see it. Okay.
Show us how the eye roll
It goes
works.
all
Thanks for
big.
that.
A little bit, only because we heard him say himself. He said, it's not my position, it's not my place to be a mentor. What did you think about Ben Roethlisberger's comments, Mark?
Well, I mean, Ben kind of sometimes is his own worst enemy because he'll say things and then he'll be like, on hindsight, that's probably not. Like, I know that when Ben came in this league, he had some issues dealing with folks and stuff. I also know he's matured a great deal since he's gotten into this league. And I don't have any doubt that Ben has been a mentor to Landry Jones and some of the other quarterbacks that have come in there. I don't have any doubt about that. But, he tends to, I'm going to retire. Maybe I don't have it anymore. He tends to throw those things out there that get taken out of context, right? But there is no question, eye roll, there is no question that once he's in that work environment, that Ben is one of those guys that will share, that will help, that will do those things. There is no question. I mean, I've talked to him about it. I've talked to him personally about it, sitting there, and he'd be the first to admit, you know what, I had to make a few changes when I first got in this league. But a lot of us have to mature that way. So I don't put too much into this.
Yeah, a lot of us have to mature. Ben has had a number of issues, but I want to go back into the locker rooms that you played in. Denver. A championship atmosphere, one of the legendary quarterbacks in John Elway. You played with a number of quarterbacks there in Washington, all of them a leader in their own right. But give me John Elway, all right? What kind of dude was John Elway? Because forget Ben, because they have very similar resumes to a certain degree. But what kind of guy was he? Because I believe that the quarterback has a ripple effect on the rest of the team. And how he treats people, it becomes very, very important to those other guys on the roster.
I always have been a guy that thought you could learn a lot by watching guys who have done it, been there before. So I came like children of the 50s when I walked in this league. It was like, keep your mouth shut, pay attention, and try to learn from the veterans. Of course, I came into the Washington Redskins with the Hogs, so I had a lot of guys that I could learn from. When I went to Denver, one of the first things I wanted to do as I walked in the locker room is just to lay back and see who John Elway was. Because at that point, he had earned the right in the world's eyes to be a prima donna if he so chose. John didn't miss a workout, ran with the team when they were asked to run, did everything the team was asked to do. He showed up, he was on time, he was in the meetings, he did all those things. And there is no question he was a consummate professional, and there's no question he bonded with the younger players, bonded with the younger quarterbacks, and helped them along the way. Now, he's John Elway, and he's not worried about losing his job. Ben Roethlisberger is not worried about Mason Rudolph or anybody else coming and taking his job. So I think when you get into the environment, you're going to be a great mentor in that case.
I want to stay on the Elway point for a second. Was the backup quarterback there Gary Kubiak?
Kubiak was, but then Kubiak became the coordinator. Kubiak became the quarterback coach and the coordinator.
And then Elway hired Kubiak to be his head coach.
Right.
Like, that's it. I obviously wasn't in the locker room.
That's building some great relationships.
But I would tell you they had a pretty good relationship because he was his backup. And then eventually, when Elway's the president of the Broncos, he makes Kubiak the head coach of the Broncos. Here's the thing. You are giving Ben more benefit of the doubt than I am prepared to. Just period, point blank. Now, you know him better than I do. But I know that when Ben's saying it was in jest, if you listen to the whole thing, I listened to the whole thing. He was interviewed by one of my best friends in the world, Andrew Filipponi. I listened to the interview live when it happened. We played it on the show. He lied about what Mason Rudolph said. That's the part that to me, is you can't just laugh off. He said, well, Mason said he doesn't need me. Mason said nothing of the sort. And so when you say he can be his own worst enemy, yeah, he can be his own worst enemy. And while Ben does not need Mason Rudolph, and Mason Rudolph obviously needs Ben, I am a big believer in paying things forward. And I know what Tommy Maddox did for Ben Roethlisberger.
Based on what Ben said.
Based on what Ben has talked about. And I think one of the reasons you are the person you are today, and you are the person you are today, and I hope to be the person like one day, is you look at people who were in positions of power, people you looked up to, and the way they extended a hand. I don't know how the Hogs treated you, but they must have taught you some things, because you went from being a damn near undrafted guy to being a 3-time Super Bowl champion. I know when you've talked about the wide receiver in Philly when you first got there, Mike Quick, those things. There is, to me, just a human responsibility to do unto others, not to sound biblical. And Ben knows how helpful Tommy Maddox was to help make Ben who he is now. That's why this whole thing irks me the way it does.
Does it irk you that Tom Brady has never really took Jimmy Garoppolo under his wing to teach him? We've heard many stories about what that relationship
Tom Brady
was like.
didn't have that done for him, though. That wasn't Tom Brady's experience.
So only if it was done to you, you do it to others?
It's more so. It's more, and Tom Brady wasn't going out of his way to undercut Jimmy G.
Well, let me tell you something. We just heard about the Jimmy G stuff. Now, Tom Brady might not have done that, but he also never said anything negative about it either.
Right. So, first 3 years.
You know, you can't tell me someone helped you, and then now you're like, oh, I made it on my own. Yeah. You know, Ben likes to be a part of the storyline. Yes. All right. He likes to over-dramatize things, but don't forget who you are, Ben. Don't forget where you came from. Don't forget, because I just believe that the way his career was and the organization that he's with, that he should feel a sense of, this is one of the great franchises in all of sports. And they've only had a few starting quarterbacks that he would be able to pay it forward, because that's what people did for him.
And I have a moral obligation. I always look at it like you have a moral obligation. When you've been blessed and when you have developed a role that you are a leader, you have a leadership role, you have a moral obligation to not only increase but enhance the lives of those you lead. That's your moral obligation. And as a quarterback that has played in one of the great franchises, I believe you have a moral obligation to try to make this place a better place.
Then how you found it.
Yeah, then how you found
Leave it better than how you found it.
So I've always believed in that as a player, and the great confident players, the real confident players, believe that I don't care how much I teach you about the game. I'll teach you everything I know, but you'll never be able to execute it the way I can execute it.
Right.
Like, you may run faster than me.
Yes.
Right? I mean, there's a lot of guys who ran faster than you.
No doubt.
A lot of guys.
Yes.
But
one more a lot.
a lot of guys. But let me just tell you, there was nobody caught the ball like Chris Carter.
No, I can guarantee you, though, too, I was the fastest brother from Alaska. If I was from Alaska. I'm fast in Alaska.
Mark, as always, Mark Clara, thank you so much.